Travel is magic. But I must admit, as I get older, it's harder to escape my comfort zone because, it's so comfortable and predictable. Yet, because I rarely do anything or go anywhere, I go through at least 10 different rituals to ensure a safe, uninterrupted experience. This time, the adventure will be that I'm staying with friends I haven't seen for a while. In one case, it's a test to see if other trips could happen in the future. The other is seeing if I can fit in. Fitting in has always been a challenge for me. Like a lot of things in life, it's facing the unknown in search of a little peace. And it's all starting now. This is Kevin. Young, successful, and probably the only one that can trick me into leaving the safety of my apartment towards an unpredictable future. I mean, after all, he's got the car, and I'm just along for the ride. Kevin wasted no time in driving us to the Walker Art Center. I suppose in our phone conversations I've been lamenting about not seeing the Walker for many years, so this was first on his list. It's the most well-known modern art gallery in the Midwest, and although it has really changed since the last time I've been here, it still retains the atmosphere that I have always loved. Since a good lot of the gallery was between shows, we spent most of our time in the sculpture garden. It's amazing to have such iconic art in one place. I always worry that I'm dragging my friends to art galleries, but in Kevin's case, he seems to be enjoying this as much as I am. Even though I've been to Minneapolis several times, I usually stayed at hotels or at a friend's house. But since this was a trip of firsts, we decided to do a vacation rental. I have never done this before, and the place Kevin picked out was one that I might not have tried since it was, huge. In fact, when I saw it online, I couldn't imagine myself being in a place like this, but here I am. Oh my God. A huge living room, complete with piano and vintage cabinets with vintage books, surrounded by vintage everything else. A great kitchen that we took full advantage of, and even a foosball table, which I don't know about Kevin, but I had no idea how to play on it. The bedrooms were up a classic wood staircase, illuminated by a vibrant stained glass window. Kevin got the master bedroom, which was only fair since he picked the place out. It was spacious, with glass doors opening onto a balcony overlooking the backyard. My bedroom was a bit smaller, but still roomy. It had a kid's room vibe, which for me, the eternal 12-year-old, was just fine. A place like this sells me on the idea of vacation rentals over hotels. Although this is nothing like my one-bedroom apartment at home, it still has a warm, familiar feeling. I just hope there's no ghosts. Since this has become a gallery tour, Day 2 started out with a visit to the Minneapolis Institute of Art. MIA is a large gallery with works from all over the world. It includes ancient art and recent modern art, like the Tibetan Buddhist Shrine Room that has bronze sculptures and artifacts dating between the 1300s to the 1900s. A large exhibition of African art that includes some drums I would love to play, but was not allowed to, mostly because word got around about my less than adequate talent as a drummer. There were smaller exhibitions, like the Modern Icons exhibition, And many favorites, like the air-cooled 1948 Tatra with its third middle headlight and futuristic fin on the back. Works like Paul Kadamus's Aspects of Suburban Life 1937 that was included in the Myron Coonan collection, and The Birthplace of Herbert Hoover, West Branch, Iowa by Grant Wood. Sculptures like Ganymede and the Eagle by Bertolt Thorvaldsen. I can't help but wonder how marble works like this even begin to take shape. There was also a large space dedicated to modern native works. And my favorite Rodin, The Age of Bronze. I could look at this piece for days. For artistic reasons, of course. Bridges bug me. I'm afraid of heights to begin with, and add on to that the traffic below and the wood floor that could easily break through, right? I prefer good solid steel, but the Irene Hickson Whitney Bridge is iconic in the Twin Cities, so you admire the view and hope the wood holds up. Once safely on the other side, Kevin and I discovered an awesome Lao restaurant called Gai Noi, and a great alley. How many great alleys do you know? Some alleys attempt greatness, but some are just satisfied with being an alley. This one has potential to be great. Perhaps there are things going on here. We will see. If I had one thing on my bucket list for this past year, it was seeing a waterfall. I have to say, I don't think I ever experienced one before, until now. The Minnehaha Falls. It's not the gigantic waterfalls you may see in places like Iceland or South America, but for me, this one's more than enough. Take a listen to the sound of rushing water. I could sleep here. One thing we spent a fair amount of time doing was driving around. It's one way of seeing a lot in a short amount of time. It's also a time of reflection, to let the rhythm of the road, the buildings, the people, the landscape, and pulse of your surroundings focus on the thoughts and feelings that spark old memories and give way to new ones. It becomes a new addition to the soundtrack of your life.
Think about the stuff that we used to do. So that one trip where we went and got lost somewhere in North Dakota and ended up we ended up crossing the border into South Dakota. We've been talking about that for about how many years now? We've been talking about that trip for 15, 20 years. So little investments in time. So that was a day, maybe a morning into an afternoon. So not even a full day, not even 12 hours probably. Emotionally fed us for more than a decade. It was to detach and separate from my regular, boring, mundane life and to not have to be anywhere and to not have to do anything, to basically just shed all those responsibilities and literally let the day unfold. Let it, whatever comes our way, comes our way.
There is that moment of letting go, that when it's happening you may not realize it, but later you know it was there, and you're left with the ongoing need to recapture it. One thing about traveling isn't so much about the place you're at, but who you're spending time with and sharing experiences. Kevin and I spent our last day together on this trip taking a walk around Bde Makaska, a large lake right in the center of the Minneapolis area. It was the perfect day for enjoying the weather and for telling stories.
One of those times out in the lagoon in Diego Garcia, I was sailing with this pilot that was a really good sailor. And we capsized in the middle of the lagoon because there was a small craft warning, and we're like, oh, fuck it, we're good sailors, we're gonna go do this. And you know, we're pulling the sheet tight and leaning off the end of the boat, you know. It was great. We were kicking ass, we were flying in the water, and the right wave hit us at the right angle, and we capsized the boat.
No sharks? No.
Well, here's the thing. In that part of the Indian Ocean, there are a lot of sharks.
Really?
And the line that holds up the mast went, gashed me right across the leg.
Wow.
So I'm out there in the lagoon bleeding, and there are like 20-foot sharks out there.
Oh, God.
So I was...
Cue the John Williams score.
Oh, you know. All I wanted to do was get that boat upright again and get out of that water, because I mean, I know guys that had fished in that lagoon, and they're pulling in something, and it's like, oh, the line goes slack, and they pull up this head with serrated.
No way. That is so Jaws.
Yeah, exactly like that. It was crazy.
But you got out alive, and
got out alive and stopped bleeding, and didn't go sailing again for a while.
This part of my trip ended exactly as I had hoped. To reconnect with a great friend, have some new experiences, and come away with lasting memories. This is not Kevin. This is the guy that Kevin dropped me off with. I have no idea who he is, but hopefully he has food. In reality, this is Nick. Our friendship dates back to the 90s, and he's been trying to convince me to visit and stay with his family for many years. I finally cracked, and here I am. Will he regret it? We will see. Nick is in a band called High on Stress that is well known in the Twin Cities area. I would guess Nick's rock and roll dream has been realized to a degree. He has a belief in himself that has allowed him to play shows at famous venues alongside some famous musical heroes. Remember this alley? It was that quiet, peaceful place where you could go and meditate. Well, it's a bit livelier today thanks to Hi-Fi Hair and Records, a place where you can get a great trim and be surrounded by everything rock and roll. Today, however, it's all rock and roll, provided by the Scarlet Goodbye. Completely opposite of that, and just across the street, is the Basilica of St. Mary. It's one of the most memorable landmarks in Minneapolis, and even though I've seen it every time I've visited, this is the first time that I've ever been inside. Construction on this building was started in 1908 and completed in 1914. It's still a strong and beautiful landmark that has withheld over 100 years of Minnesota winters. That's better than I can say for a lot of us. Nick and I drove around the Twin Cities area to see some landmarks I hadn't experienced before, like the George Floyd Memorial set up at the exact spot where he was murdered on May 25, 2020, which sparked riots and protests around the world. Also, along with our friend Mike Jeldon, we saw another Minneapolis landmark that had some significance for us. Just outside of musician and artist Prince's famous Paisley Park Studios is a fan-made memorial to the artist who passed away in 2016 that goes under Arboretum Boulevard. It's said that Prince would take this route when out for bike rides. I think one of the reasons that Nick and I had a connection was our love of Prince's music and his accomplishments as an artist. I had visited Paisley Park in the early 90s when some friends that were in a band called Nixon Pupils recorded there. When Nick moved to Minneapolis, he would attend private concerts that Prince would put on at Paisley Park. Prince's work is still loved to this day, and his influence lives on. In Prince's first film, Purple Rain, a lot of well-known places in Minneapolis are mentioned. One is Lake Minnetonka. Although the scene it's mentioned in was not shot at the actual Lake Minnetonka, it's still worth visiting. I suppose this would be the perfect place to take your significant other on your purple motorcycle. With all this talk about music, I had to see a concert. I became aware of a band called Cigarettes After Sex a few months ago. They were ambient dream pop, which is some of my favorite kinds of music. I was surprised that they were at the Excel Center, which is one of the largest venues in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. I mean, ambient, dark, sad music? You would think someplace smaller would be more fitting. But apparently, their popularity amongst younger music fans is pretty large. Nick and I were feeling like grandpas in this stadium filled with angsty teenage girls and their boyfriends. But, as I found out later, all these teenagers were enjoying music that was being played by a band that could be their dads. So we weren't the only old guys in the building. The concert was beautiful, as you can see. The music was great, but due to possible copyright problems, what you're hearing is actually one of my songs. But it's kind of close to what they do, so enjoy. We had an opportunity to have a look around Minnesota Public Radio studios courtesy of my friend Josh. It had been years since the last time he and I were in the same place together, so this was a double treat. Josh is an engineer at NPR and has recorded a variety of artists from classical to jazz to pop. So when you walked into this place for the first time, was it overwhelming? Was it Kid in the Candy Store?
It was Kid in the Candy Store. Yeah, absolutely. You can unscrew the whole channel strip, and you pull out the channel.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You can replace, but like components are hard to come by these days, so it's hard to like replace different parts of it.
Brent, do you ever get dust in your knobs?
All the time, especially at my age.
This is we don't really use it for this anymore, but we do have an isolated booth back here.
Oh, wow.
If a musician gets unruly, you can just walk him in there.
Yeah, exactly.
You can put a drummer in there.
Oh, that's a good place for a drummer.
Josh is also a great artist himself, and like a lot of us, we take our work home with us and apply it to our own art. The song you're hearing right now is a cover of one of mine that Josh did for his latest work. It's amazing how many of my friends are living their dream. Living your dream, however, takes different avenues and has rewards in different ways. Chad is one of the most positive people I know. I worked on 4 different albums with him, and all of them had amazing results that I'm very proud of. Still, for him, something was missing. Now he has filled that empty part of his life with his wife Kayla and their 4 kids.
And it's just nonstop until they go to sleep at night, and then by the time they go to sleep, then it's like you have 1 hour before we go to bed, and then we do like quick eat dinner and and all that stuff. So yeah, it gets busy, but when they're a little bit older, it'll get hopefully a lot easier.
Yeah. Something as beautiful and simple as a family and someone to share it all with can be the ingredient that is needed in a recipe for a fulfilling life.
I just hope they turn into good people. Right, Autumn? Yeah. You're already a good person, aren't you, Autumn?
This trip gave me a look into the life as an older person I had hoped for. Being a part of something. Being a character in someone's memories and they in mine. I can't remember too many things of great importance happening in this past year, but this past week in Minneapolis, I'll remember every moment in a very fond and most vivid way. Partly because of its rarity, but also because of who I spent it with. A few laughs with Kevin, whose eternal youth is infectious. Hanging out with Nick and even recording a new song together. That meant the world to me. Nick's wife Andrea showing me a few simple new ideas for breakfast and dinner. Those have become my new traditions. Josh's accomplishments in recording and discovering his own place in the arts. Chad's new challenges as a father, husband, and still the best multi-instrumentalist I'd ever had the great fortune to work with. Nick's kids, Mary, who is so much fun to hang out with, and Henry, who is so talented for a guy so young. Both of them are going to be a joy to watch grow up and become awesome individuals. As I return to the place I've lived most of my life, I'll bring back these memories and newfound friends. I'm heading for home, a place where I wonder if anyone really needs me. Only now I'll be reinvigorated by knowing that there are those somewhere down the road who still do. Until next time, when the train leaves the station.